Alright, welcome everyone to another video, and in this one we'll be taking a look at Termux and Linux. These are two apps that kind of work together, and we'll install some operating system on top of Android. Now, Android already has a bunch of terminal emulators on the Play Store. Most of them usually just use the Android rootfs and all the commands in there and then give you a terminal for Android itself rather than like a Linux distro. There are a few Linux installers that in a way use something like QEMU, or they are more or less like a container but they install in a separate image file, which I've also played with in one of the previous videos long back. But this is something different. This Termux actually runs a very tiny container inside of Linux, so you don't have that emulation layer over it, and it runs on user space. User space, not even root. So you don't need to root your device. You can just go ahead and install Termux, and it will run out of the box. You can buy a new device and do it. No root required, nothing like that. No fancy business, and it's free. So we have Termux and we have and Linux. And Linux is just a base kind of a basic commands that let you run much larger and much proper operating in Linux operating systems like Fedora and Ubuntu on top of Termux. So container over container kind of a deal. Termux has a set of tools inbuilt. It's kind of limited, but you can get away with just using Termux. So we're going to see what happens. I'm running Android 8.1 on the Motorola Power One, and yeah, I have Termux installed. I have and Linux installed right there, and let's get straight into it. So, if you're curious, I'm using a keyboard and mouse via the OTG, which is possible for most phones that I've released in the past few years, and on the other side of things, you can also use Bluetooth keyboard and mouse that just work fine. So going ahead and launching Termux, this is how it looks like, just the very basic things. And you can see we have a bunch of things here. Now I have HTOP installed, but I don't seem to have Nano installed. Now to install Nano, you can run pkg install Nano, and pkg basically just invokes apt, and that's how it gets. It's using all the Ubuntu Ubuntu repositories, kind of. We'll see in a second what repositories it actually using. It's not exactly Ubuntu repositories, but still. So I can go Nano, and now Nano comes up. All my keyboard shortcuts work exactly the same. So Control X is out, and I can also use the tab functionality, and I can get htop like that. And here where things get a bit interesting, you can see the only two processes we have is htop and Termux. So in Android, each app has its own kind of a containerized area that it can work in and things that it can access. So each app is sort of a container within Android. So all it can see is the things that it's running and things that it's allocated. So it has basic things like the number or amount of RAM available and swap memory available, but there's nothing about CPU that any app knows or what's running on the CPU other than what the app itself runs. So even in the task session, you can see just two tasks. There are of course more tasks running, but the app itself doesn't have access to those. So again, this is kind of a proof that I'm not rooted in. It's running on a non-root stock Android build. I can exit that. Now let's see what all source it's using for apt. So etc. So you can see how now it's actually showing. I thought I'd be able to get to the apt source list like that, but if I do a ls of root, it's not allowed to show it. Let's see. And here you can see it's got a lot of things that it's not directly related to. So the Motorola folder here, and a couple more things that I can see. It seems like the root file system it's trying to access right now is the actual Android root file system instead of the app default root file system. So if I do an ls or a pwd, so this is where we are. And to go to the root file system of the app itself, we need to go back to the root directory, and here we have home and user, and that's all we have, no etc for some reason. And here we have etc, so that's where we can access etc and see sources what we are using. So lsusr slash etc, and now we should have apt and sources.list. Sorry, we needed to cat that, so cat. So there's just one, it's not using the Ubuntu one, so it has its own termux.net. That's fine. So now let's actually, you can see we are back at the home file system. So yes, it's a more or less of a full-fledged Linux FS, um, GNU Linux root FS. And let's go and install another operating system. We'll start with Fedora, move on to Kali and Ubuntu, and then Arc, and then Arc, whatever. So let's go back to our home screen. There we are, and here we can run the An Linux app. We can go to choose. We can choose Fedora from here, uh, and then click OK. And from here we can actually just choose to copy, and it shows us an ad every time we copy. We support the developers. So we copy that, and then we go back to to Termux, and here we can long press and paste our code, and this will install Fedora for us. So it's working now. Let's see what all it gets. So it got p root is something that I'm seeing as a containerish thing, but it's basically something along the lines of a ch root kind of a deal, a more managed ch root, if that makes sense. And it will install a bunch of things. Here you can see we have a Fedora binds, Fedora fs, fedora.sh. That's the thing to install, and then start fedora.sh. Running the start fedora.sh would actually allow you to get into the Fedora ch root file system, and there we are. So we can do ls, and the root file system would actually be Fedora's root file system instead of the Android root file system we saw previously. And at the same time we can actually go ahead and see cat os slash etc os release, and here you can see there's Fedora 27, which is kind of old considering the Fedora 29 release is coming next week. So at least should have been Fedora 28, but that's how things are. You can even run DNF, so we can do a DNF upgrade, and it will start like downloading all the repositories and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's interesting. Now we are back at Termux. We have exited Fedora. Let's go back and copy the. I know I was going to install the GUI, but I think we should install Ubuntu first, because GUI just takes a long time. I'll do it towards the end, but we have the transition here. Okay, dashboard, choose. Let's go ahead with Ubuntu. Ubuntu, the first one. Press OK. So the steps to do something with Kali Linux is so similar that I'm kind of thinking of not doing Kali. It will just get a bit too repetitive. Let's go back, open Termux back again, and Control V doesn't work, Control Shift V doesn't work. We'll have to use the other things. So paste. That is for Ubuntu, and let's see which Ubuntu we get. Start ubuntu.sh. And there's some errors there, but it's there now. ls root shows us our Ubuntu file system. Let's do cat etc os release, and that gives us 18.04 LTS, so at least that's up to date. Apt update should give us an update of everything else. Now this particular thing should now be running all the Ubuntu repositories. So let's try to compile the Linux kernel just for fun now. From my previous experience with Termux, installing the build essentials package and something similar to that to compile the whole kernel didn't go successfully. So we'll see how this one goes. So apt install and this one. So press enter and it will take a few more seconds. And let's see, hopefully if this bit gets installed, then we can actually go ahead and build a kernel. Alright, that is it. Now I'm kind of curious if nproc gives me anything. It does give me 8 cores, so that means cat slash proc CPU info should also give me 8 cores down. That's detecting the processors perfectly. So Snapdragon 636, which is kind of curious because htop does not show you the number of processors or the usage actually. So if I install htop again, because again we're running Ubuntu not Termux, so apt install htop, will this now htop running inside Ubuntu give us anything more than the htop inside Termux gives us? Which it doesn't, because it cannot open proc start, which is weird, but it's what it is. So installing the downloading the source code, I usually use the not so famous the GitHub mirror. All right, so for the most part, it looks everything's downloaded. Now my turning off the screen kind of glitched the line alignment, but that's fine. You can see we have the Linux directory here, so we can see it into Linux. Now the ncurses library, I was trying that, I couldn't figure out the name. But if we run make, I don't know if I even installed make, but build essentials should install make. But anyways, if I run make menu config, it should now start to request for the ncurses library. Uh, which it will not find because I haven't installed it. Yep. So lib ncurses dev. So let's go ahead and install that apt install lib ncurses dev. Wait for a few seconds and there we go. So make def config. This will take a few more seconds. Hmm. Flex, yes, Bison and Flex, another dependency. So apt install Flex. All right, now finally let's make def config. Just a second there and done. And that should make our def config in a second. So this is looking pretty good. I hope I'm not just speaking too early and everything fails, which would be pretty bad. But this is looking cool. This looks like we can get a kernel working. Um, so couple of errors there. I don't know what's going on. So there are certain restrictions that the Android operating system possesses over pretty much everything that runs on it, especially the stock Android OS, because it's kind of restricted due to security reasons. So if you have a rooted one or a custom ROM, it should be fine. Let's try make menu config and let's see if it gives us this full nice TUI for us to work with, and modify configs. Not that I'd really have to modify configs, but it's always nice to see that you have the option, even if you are running on a smartphone. Again, if startup, yeah, the proc start thing is an issue, and there we go. We have, yeah, we have make menu config running, which is pretty darn nice. And I can like go into stuff and change stuff and stuff like that. Um, Not much to do here. We are just using the def config. Um, that's it. We are using def config. Let's get out. We are not building for anything specific. Let's see if we have time installed, which is there. Moment of truth, will it compile the Linux kernel? I certainly hope so. There are some things here and there that I have no control over, and if they fail, that would be an issue. But for now, time. Let's see how long it takes. Make all. I'm thinking of disabling loadable module support. So that means all the modules get all the things that are supposed to be built as modules get linked to the kernel directly. So I'll go into menu config and change that in a second so that we don't have to compile modules separately. That's all, I guess. Um, let's see. It should, yep. Enable module support, disable that, exit, enter, and now we can go ahead and time make all J8, or we can also do J and proc. That would be fun. Let's see how long it takes. So I'll press enter, let it start, and go ahead and then finally cut off the recording because I'm not sure how long it would take and how hot my phone gets. That would be pretty interesting to see how hard this actually hammers the CPU. Oh man, some error from grep. It doesn't look nice. Let's hope for the best. Hope we get a Z image at the end. Bit more things. Host CC is running. Host CC is fine. Let's wait and see where this goes. It's running slower, much slower than I expected. But oh, okay. So OpenSSL dev needs to be installed, which is kind of a bummer. I didn't realize that earlier. So apt install. But let's see. Make all jn proc. Hopefully, SSL is not an issue now, and we'll wait for the build to start once again. I hope it does soon. Alright, so it looks like it started to build now, but I can only see it building DTBs. So until unless it's doing that first, it's kind of um, it's fine. I guess it started to build now. We can see a bit of ASM stuff that's going on. CC has come into play. And there we go. We are building the Linux kernel, which is pretty darn nice. So I'm going to let this go, turn off the phone screen, let the phone as is, and see how long it takes. All right, it's done, and it's taken a complete hour to do it. Now I'm kind of surprised that it took so long because I thought 8 cores should be more than enough. But then, honestly, a lot of the single core linking process, the LD VM Linux.o and just the LD VM Linux takes so much time on a slower single core processor. With especially with ARM, this is the case right now where the single core performance isn't as much as multi-core one, and when it comes to running LD or the linker for GCC or any compiler, it just takes a long time. So LLVM linker is actually multi-threaded, from what I've heard. It's just the GCC one that takes the hit. So, anyways, takes 1 hour. Nice. Now what? Let's go ahead and boot it. I know we don't have the root efforts, the kernel would crash, but it's just exciting enough to boot. So let's go and install qemu. So sudo apt install qemu system. All right, so QEMU system, and we have AR64. Let's say machine as virtual, CPU as Cortex, um, ARC, 64 boot image. Let's see. And there we go. It's booting. Of course, it will crash in 3, 2, 1 because there's no rootfs there, but at the end of the day, I we did compile a kernel and it did boot. We'll boot into full GNU Linux system sometime later, and I think this is more than enough for this video. I'm so kind of excited to have it all built and boot on my phone out of all the things. And yeah, this is pretty good. No root required, no Android modifications. It just works, and it's awesome that it works. So thank you so much for watching. Hope it's been kind of interesting. My uploads haven't been very regular. I've been kept busy with other things. But till then, hope to see you all in the next one. Like, share, comment, hit the bell and the notification bell. I don't know what's the difference between those two. Anyways, make sure you are kept up to date. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well, which I'll show the things here. It's in the description as well. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. See you all in the next one. Bye.